Hello class, this is Mr. Hernandez, and for today I have a video where I'm going to be showing you my process as I solve one of these problems on CodeHS. Now, full transparency, I have done this problem before, but I don't have the solution open or anything with me right now, so you will see me working through it as I go, and hopefully it should kind of give you some insight into my thought process as I'm solving problems on CodeHS, how I go about organizing my thoughts, how I go about starting and troubleshooting when things don't quite work right. So let's take a look at this problem. It is 2.4.8, greetings and salutations. And let's read this here. So write a class called salutations. So our main code here is this salutations tester. We can see that it's the main code because it's got this play button next to it. And there's a second code called salutations.java. So that's going to be our class file right there. So write a class called salutations that prints various greetings and salutations. The class should have one instance variable, a string called name. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, where I'm going to make an instance variable in my class, and it's going to be a string called name. Now, for a class, instance variables are private, so I'm going to say private string name is all that that's telling me to do. So now I've set up a data type of a string, and it's going to be some variable name, and it's a private, and this is my instance variable for this class. And that's going to represent the person to whom the salutations are directed. Okay, the class should have the following methods. A constructor that takes the string to initialize name with, so I need a constructor, and then I need these methods. Address letter, sign letter, address memo, sign memo. So I'm actually just going to copy these because they're already in the right format for me. I'm going to leave myself some space, copy those, fix my alignment here, and there's going to be some sort of input or some sort of code in here for each of these. So I'm going to go ahead and put my curly braces so I remember that I need to go down there and finish those. So these are the four methods. There's also going to be some sort of constructor that I need to make as well, and we'll address that in a little bit. But let's look at these methods real quick. Address letter should print dear name, where name is replaced by the value of the instance variable name. So I need to do a print statement. So I'm going to do a system.out.println, and we're going to print dear name. But again, it says name should be the variable's value, not the word name. So in fact, I'm going to take it out of the quotation, so it's not part of the string, and it's just going to call whatever the value of name is and enter that right here. So that should be all we need to do for that one. Let's look at sign letter, a very similar thing, except it's going to be multiple print statements. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this to save myself some time. Oh, I forgot a semicolon, as I can see here. I'm just going to copy this, right, paste it twice. And this one is supposed to say sincerely on the first line. So I'll make this say sincerely. And on the second line, it should say name. So I'm just going to have name here. There are other ways to do this if you know how to enter in a character that will make a new line. But this is the easiest way for us to do this, at least right now. So this will print sincerely on one line. And then on the next line, it'll print whatever this value for name is. That's why we're using println here instead of just print, so that we move to a new line after the statement. All right, address memo should just print to whom it may concern. So that's nice and easy. I'll just copy to whom it may concern and paste that in there. No problem. No comma or colon or anything, so that should be all that needs. And then sign memo should print, again, two lines just like this one. So I'll copy this here, and I'll just change it to what this one's supposed to say. I think it was supposed to say best and then name. So this should just say best instead of sincerely. All right, so I've written my 4 methods for my class, and I've set up this instance variable name. I'm going to move over to the main code now and get this set up. So if I read this, it says that the class should have one instance variable, a string called name, to represent the person to whom the salutations are directed. So we're going to be addressing somebody when we're writing this code and when we're using this code. So this is not completely necessary, but I'm actually going to use a scanner so we can ask the user who these are being addressed to. So in order to do a scanner, again, we have to import scanner from java.util. So I'm going to do import java.util.scanner. So now we can use the default scanner class from java.util. And in order to set up a scanner, I'm just going to copy and paste the user input, this thing here, because I can't be bothered to remember how to do it. So I'm going to paste this, where in order to make a scanner, we do scanner, because scanner is the class. See, I have the class there as well. This is the name of the scanner. And I actually like to use input as the name for my scanner. You can use whatever you want, though. I just tend to use input personally. It's just what I often do, and I always remember that my scanners are called input. So whenever I'm working on a new code, if I need to check the scanner, I know I can just use input to do that. So we're going to make a new scanner called input. All right, and then we need to ask the user who they are addressing. So we can just print that out. System.out.println, who are you addressing, let's say. And so after we do that, we want to be able to have the user enter something and for us to take that information in. So when we're using a scanner, if we want to check what the person entered, remember we need to use that next line command. So I want to store, first of all, the name. They're going to say who, I'm going to ask them who they're addressing, and maybe they'll say Billy or Jim. So I need to store that value. So I'm going to store that as a string, and it's going to be, let's call it addressee. I don't even know if that's a word. Equals, and it's going to be whatever the person puts in. So since we're using scanner, and our scanner is called input, we're going to do input.nextLine. And this will take the next thing that the user inputs, and it will store it, whatever that is, into a string called addressee. So now we've got the name. If I go ahead and run this real quick, the code should ask me, who are you addressing? And let's say I'm addressing Jim. And it doesn't really do anything, but if I wanted to check the status of my code right now, I can print this variable addressee, and it'll tell me what its value is. So again, this time let's make it, I don't know, Tommy. And now you see it prints Tommy again, because it's saving Tommy in place of the variable addressee here. So addressee has the value Tommy now. All right. So now what? I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Well, if we look at our exercise here, we need to so we need to be able to use these methods that we created in this class over here. So we need an object. Only use the methods on objects that are of this class. So I have a class called salutations. If I make a salutations object, or if I make something of this class, then I can use these methods on that object. So in order to do that, we need to make an object. So I'm going to do create an object here. So the class is salutations, so we put the class first, so salutations, and then we'll pick a variable name. I'll go ahead and say it's going to be, I don't know, let's call it greeting. I don't know, equals new, and then we put the class again. So the class again is salutations. And then something might go in here, something might not. And in this case, we want to be addressing or talking to our addressee, the person that we are directing our salutations at. So I'm going to put that variable that we made, addressee, in here as a parameter. And parameters are variables that are kind of assigned to a specific object or method. In this case, the addressee variable that we already defined is going to be associated with this object greeting. And now we can use greeting and we can have the data stored in addressee when we do it. So what does that all mean? Well, we should be able to. Now we've got an object called greeting. I should be able to just say greeting dot and use one of my methods. So let's try using what's the simple one here? Address memo should just print out to whom it may concern. So I'm just going to do greeting dot and then the method. So this should be address memo, I think is what it was. Yeah, address memo. So if you ever want to use a method on an object, you put the object name and then a dot, and then you put the method that you want to use. So if I run this, what will happen? Let's find out. And we've got an error. Well, let's look at our error message here. Salutations tester.java error. Constructor salutations in class salutations cannot be applied to given types. Salutations greeting equals new salutate, blah, 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 blah. Basically, as I read this, I'm realizing that, I forgot my class constructor. So if I go back to the class file here and look at the assignment, it told us the class should have the following methods, and the very first thing was a constructor that takes a string to initialize name with. And I need to make that constructor. So let's do that. Well, I think, no, I don't remember if this is a public or a private, so I think it's supposed to be public, so we'll try public. And public and private just refers to whether or not that thing that you're writing, whatever follows, can be referenced just in the file we're in, that would be private, or if it can be referenced outside the file, that would be public. I think we want to use public here, so we'll do public, and we need to define our object. So we'll do public. I'm forgetting how to do this. Main method. So I don't remember how to do this. So I'm actually going to Java class constructor, and I'm just going to look it up, constructor, and hopefully I can find something that jogs my memory and reminds me how to do this. And W3 Schools, again, is a highly recommended website. It's the reference that I use most often. So it is public. My class, so in this case our class is salutations, so it should be salutations. Yes, I'm remembering this now. Okay, so let's do this. Oops, didn't mean to go there. Let's go here. Okay, so we want to do public salutations. And if you look at our main code again, we're passing in a parameter here. We need to address that parameter. We need to make sure that we know what to do when we're handling that parameter. So in our constructor here, we're going to have a parameter as well. So our parameter that we entered in was a string. Remember, it's someone's name. So it's a string, and I'm just going to say person. It should be a more descriptive name than that. So let's say addressed person. So whatever we're passing in this case the value or the variable addressee, is going to be interpreted, and it's going to be stored as this variable addressed person. Now, what we need to do at that point is take our string name, which we have not given a value to yet, and we're going to set it equal to that parameter, addressed person. So now, if we're addressing Jim, if we ask the user, who are we addressing, and they type Jim, well, it's going to store Jim as this value addressee. Then, with line 11 here, we're going to send Jim, which is here in addressee, to our class constructor. So if we now go over to our class constructor, this has the value Jim, and it's now called addressed person, and it's going to save addressed person as name. And now whenever we print out name, it should print Jim. So let's check our code again. Okay, it looks like it's running. I'm going to put my name here, Tyler. Okay, so we've got one method working. It's not one of the ones that has the name though. So let's go ahead and put those other methods in there and see what happens. So I'm going to copy this line. Our object is called greeting. So again, we need to put all our methods on this object greeting. And our methods were address memo. I think there's a sign memo. And there's an address letter. And there's a sign letter. And that should not be capitalized. So now I should see the output of all of my 4 different methods, one after the other. So the first one is the address memo, which should say to whom it may concern. Then we will see the sign memo, which should say best and then the name that we enter. Then it will run address letter, which will print dear and then the name that we pick. And then it'll sign letter, which will say sincerely and then the name that we pick. So let's check this. And again, I'm just going to keep picking different names so you guys can see that it is actually responding to the scanner here. And I'm going to pick, I don't know, Tony Stark. Whom it may concern, best Tony Stark. Dear Tony Stark, sincerely Tony Stark. Cool. Except I think one thing is missing. This Dear Tony Stark, I think should have a piece of punctuation at the end of it. Dear name. Oh, I guess not. So I think we're good. If I go ahead and hit check code here, it will go through and check and say that all of my methods are working. And when I was missing this constructor, if I actually go ahead and comment this out real quick, and I check my code, if I'm missing the constructor, it won't work. It just doesn't know what to do because I haven't actually dealt with making the object yet. I set up the instance variables and I set up the methods, but I didn't actually make the object. So there's no object to perform these methods on. So you have to have your constructor. Again, you have to have your instance variables. Methods are optional. You can have a constructor that does not have method, or you can have a class that does not have methods, and that's totally fine. Kind of pointless, but it can be done. So that's all for you. That's how I would answer this problem in real time. And if you have any questions on how I did any of this, how I addressed this, please feel free to email me. Again, I will not be in class today. I will see you guys next time. Please continue working on CodeHS. You should have completed sections 2.1 and 2.2 by now. If you have not, please get those done as soon as possible. If you are ahead of that, if you're in 2.3 by now, then you are maintaining a very good pace. Keep up the pace that you're currently at. Send me any email questions or questions via Access, and I'll respond to them as quickly as I can. And that's about it for today. Good luck, guys. See you later.